Good morning, wherever we are in Australia. Welcome to the Walkabout Lodge in Nhulunbuy in the eastern side of Arnhem Land in the Northern Territory. I'm in my hotel room at the moment. It's going to be an interesting experience because I'll be coming from a very remote place while I'm running a bunch of tourism workshops right now. But I guess let's just hope the Telstra mobile network holds up its end of the bargain and keeps this all moving nice and smoothly. I'll share my screen and we'll get underway. My name is Dante, by the way, so thank you very much for joining me. I hope we can get some really good stuff about this, about how you can put together a sales routine or a sales program for yourself. Even if you're not a salesy kind of person. And that was certainly me at the beginning of this journey too. Mark Hunter, who is one of the greatest sales trainers in America and Canada as well. I think he was born in Canada. It's all about the small stuff. He says not about having the right opportunities. It's about handling each of those opportunities as they come up in the right way. So let's see what some of that means in terms of building your own set of processes for selling your stuff. This is brought to you by Business Station and the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Digital Solutions Program, in conjunction with Regional Development Australia in Brisbane for Queensland and Treaty Business Consulting in Darwin for the Northern Territory. You can watch this not just next week, but a little bit later on. I'm hoping I can download and upload it again a little bit later on today to make it available at the Business Station channel on YouTube. Probably a little bit quicker on my own YouTube channel, which is just search my name, Dante St. James, D-A-N-T-E, and then St. James as in a church, and you'll be able to find me on YouTube as well. What we're going to cover this morning is the process of prospecting for sales leads, conducting what's called a discovery meeting, getting your pitch right, and handling objections, which is an important thing to do without freaking out, and negotiation and closing. Now, I've got a bit of a cold and a bit of a sore throat, so please excuse me if I had to defer to the glass of water quite a few times today, just to keep the voice going nicely. My background is as a certified practicing marketer with the Australian Marketing Institute. I work with Treaty Business Consulting, with who I'm out at the moment with Tourism NT, training people in far-flung places how to be better tour operators. I've done a lot of selling with Southern Cross Austereo, the largest media company in Australia. The Chartered Institute of Marketing is where I've done a lot of my marketing certifications. I work with Facebook's training program called Boost with Facebook Australia, in conjunction then with Google's Digital Springboard program. I've sold for Channel 10, and I've done a lot of selling for my own business, ClickStarter, which is one of the several things that I've got a bit of a finger in the pie with at the moment. But I'm also doing business development for a couple of apps that are up and coming, and that's building interest in gathering some marketing and some investment money to develop those apps as well, which of course is also a sales process. So where does this all begin? It begins in a thing called prospecting. Now, we usually think of prospecting as something where you go panning for gold in a creek in Victoria, in central Victoria in the 1850s. But it's a little bit like that. You're panning for those little nuggets of gold where your customers actually happen to live. Now, your customers, they can be in several places. They can be someone who has a very easily defined problem that they haven't had that problem, satisfied or corrected. They know they have that problem. So that's your first kind of customer. They know exactly what they want, and they know that it's a problem, that they have that problem. Number two is the customers that have a problem, but they don't actually realize they've got that problem yet. These are the kind of people that yet they don't know what they don't know. They're the people who didn't know they needed a mobile phone until they got a mobile phone, and suddenly they realize, how in the hell did I live without a mobile phone, right? And number three is the ones that know that someone else has a problem and that they can refer a sale through to them. So your first one is the person who knows what their problem is and they know that they need to solve it. The second one is they don't really even realize they've got a problem, but it does need solving. And then the third person is someone who knows someone else who has a problem that needs solving. Now, when you look at it in terms of the way these people relate and behave, is that number one person, the one who has a problem and knows they've got a problem needing solving, they come looking for you because they know that you're the person who can solve that problem for them. This is what we kind of call inbound marketing. People who go looking for you. They find you on Google. They find you on Facebook. They find you in the yellow pages, if anyone still uses that. Then secondly, you've got the people who have a problem, but they don't know they've got the problem. And this is the people that you reach with your marketing. It's making them aware that you solve a problem when it may come up for them in the future. So that when the problem comes up, They know who you are and they know where to go. Harvey Norman's kind of the kings of this, and so is JB Hi-Fi. You don't need a new computer or a new mobile phone every single day of the week. But at that point in the future, in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months time, when you do need to get a new computer, you know where to go because you know Harvey Norman, you know JB Hi-Fi, for instance. That's the second kind of customer. That's what we call pull marketing. We're pulling them towards us. And the third type is a referral. That's where your previous work with a particular client or your marketing has reached a particular client. They know you, they've worked with you, they trust you, and they can then refer you on to someone else. They may not themselves need you ever again, or they might, but what they will do is pass you on to those people who can then come and use your product or service. Now, your best tools when you go out into that prospecting, no matter where the stage that person is, whether they're the person who knows they got the problem, whether the person doesn't know they got a problem, or whether they're the person who's referring to someone else, knowledge of your industry and knowledge of your product is absolutely paramount. You're going to get caught off guard if people ask you questions about your product and you do not know the answers. There's a story about a membership organization that I heard of yesterday, where someone who was representing that membership organization, who was responsible for the development of more clients and more members for that organization, didn't off the top of their head know what the costs were to join that organization. So imagine joining a club, you're in charge of recruiting new members and you don't even know what cost it is for people to join that club. And then this person didn't know the benefits of membership. They couldn't just go, oh yeah, it's this, you get this, you get this. They had no idea of this. They got caught out because their product knowledge wasn't up to scratch. You need to know your product well. And if you're selling your product and that product is you, then you're in a unique position because you should know a heck of a lot about you and what you're capable of doing, right? If you're selling someone else's product, say for instance, it's network marketing or affiliate marketing, you're selling someone else's powder, potion, or pill or program, right? It's not your program, it's not your powder, potion, or pill, it's what you're selling for someone else. Then your product knowledge needs to be something you need to push yourself to get. You can't just walk in and go, here you go, here's what the network marketers gave me to give to you. There you go. People will ask you questions. They'll go, well, what has it been like for you? What the ingredients are. They're not going to sit there and read a piece of paper because you gave them that piece of paper. They want to find out from you what the attributes of that product are, what it does, what's the features, what's the benefits, what's in it for them. So you really need to know your product, whether it's you or whether it's something you're selling of someone else's. That is absolutely paramount. And having some knowledge around the industry, say, for instance, if you are selling a version of a protein powder through even a network marketing organization, you need to know what the state of the industry of protein powders is. Why is hydrolyzed whey protein a far more superior way of delivering protein to the cells? Well, you need to know this. You need to know some of the science behind what it is you're selling. Then there's those interpersonal skills. Now, what we call the soft skills. And there's nothing soft about them. This is the stuff that's going to get you across the line when product itself isn't going to get them there. When you line up 5 products that are almost identical, the prices are the same, everything's almost exactly the same. It's your relationship and your ability to form a connection and to build a rapport with a potential customer that will make all the difference. That's why they'll buy it from you and not necessarily from someone else. And then show some experience, show some stories, show some testimonials. Case studies are a great tool when you're prospecting. Oh yeah, I met someone just like you last week who I was talking to down in Catherine, and they were actually saying they attacked this problem doing XXX. You might want to try that. When someone feels like you've had experience with someone just like them, they feel like then they can trust you with that thing as well. They feel like that you know what they're talking about, and you're creating something which is called empathy, that they can relate to you because you can relate to them. It's a very, very different way of selling than simply throwing a product and throwing a sales spiel at someone. Some of the best tools you'll find out there are technology tools. Things like LinkedIn, where you can see someone's work history. Now, this is doing a little bit of research on somebody who you're looking to do some work with. Say, for instance, if I'm looking to do a series of workshops in Northern New South Wales, I will go, okay, I'm ready to do those. How do I actually get myself in a position to be able to get into that town, organize workshops, book venues, book catering, all that sort of stuff? when I'm not actually there, I don't know who I'm dealing with. Well, the first thing I'll do is look through my LinkedIn contacts and go, who do I know in Northern New South Wales who can actually do some of this stuff for me, take some of the load off me? Likewise, if you're trying to sell to someone in a particular area, you can look through who your connections are on LinkedIn or Facebook or even Instagram and see where they are. And then you can learn a little bit about them, making some references to local places. So, for instance, when I'm in Nhulunbuy at the moment, it helps for me to know what I'm talking about. So I look through and go, who do I know in Nhulunbuy? It's a good idea for me to go and meet with them, get in touch with them. Tell me what it's like. What's the local tourism industry like? What's the local training and development industry like? What's going on in town? So that when I hit town, I've got that information already in my rucksack and I'm ready to be able to pull it out and go, oh yeah, I know about your town. Here's a fact that I know about your town. Isn't that fascinating? It helps to build that whole rapport thing, and it shows you have some experience with that town or with that market or with that kind of person that you're trying to actually then sell something into. Google. If you want to find out anything about me, you'll probably find it on Google. You Google my name and there's all sorts of stuff you're going to learn about in there. It's all pretty clean, I think. Last time I Googled myself, there's no scandals in there at all. Let's say my latest police check came through with flying colors. So obviously nothing bad's happened yet. So Googling someone is a valuable way of getting some information about them, not so you can stalk them. This is not a creepy thing. This is basically what they've allowed to be made public about themselves. You can have a recall back to it. When you get into a meeting, knowing what someone's done before, their previous businesses, their previous work jobs, and say, oh, you worked with David over at the Department of Energy and Resources. What was that like? I hear he's like a real dynamic guy. And then you've got an instant point of referral where you can get someone talking about themselves rather than talking about yourself, so they feel comfortable. They feel like they're in a position to comfortably talk about themselves and comfortably talk about their lives. And then you've got Facebook and Instagram equally to help out with personal connections. Quite often you'll pop up and you'll look for somebody on Facebook and you'll see that you've got a mutual friend. And you can go, oh, I might just quickly ask, hey, do you know Braden? He's I'm going to meet him in a meeting next week. And is there anything else I should sort of know about him that you would sort of make the introduction a little easier, because I don't want to kind of go in there cold. And that mutual friend will go, oh yeah, Braden, I've known him for 20 years. Ask him about his fishing trip that he went on to a month ago and mention me. So when you can mention someone who you do know in common, it makes you feel more connected. When you feel more connected to someone, you feel more comfortable listening to them. You feel more comfortable hearing out what they've got to say and knowing that there's something that they can add to your life. It's not just a case of you going, oh yeah, yeah, so I noticed you got married to your childhood sweetheart and it was in that church, by that chapel, by that creek with the really nice fence in the background. That's getting creepy. But mentioning is like, hey, I'm mates with your friend Charlie. Charlie told me about this fishing trip we went on to last month. Where was that? And you get them talking about something to do with themselves, and it puts them in a comfortable position. Now, this isn't just a sales tool. This is a human tool. It's not just that you're trying to sell this person. I know it feels easy to pull out a piece of paper and go, here's my rates, buy it or don't. It helps you to make a new friend, even to form some kind of relationship with someone, so you feel like then, and they feel like that you have the right to be speaking their life. You've earned the right to be speaking to them about the things that they need solved in their business or in their life. So you're not just rocking up cold and trying to sell them a hard sales speech. You're actually relating to them as another human being. That's not manipulation. That's not creepy. That's just human behavior. We are social creatures. We have a need to connect. Even those of us who don't really want to connect very much, we still have a need to have interpersonal relationships with people. Excuse me, just 1 second of this little head cold starting to get to me. You don't want to hear this, so I'll just quickly mute my. That's better. So other tools you can use is things like lead tracking tools. So you can use things like Hootsuite and ShortStack, which are really good for you to look through what some of the processes are that people are going through in their social media, so you can see the things that appeal to them. ShortStack's really good for this because it allows you to sort of analyze behaviors and look at where leads may be coming from that are very handy for what you do in your industry. It's sort of looks at a topic that's going on in social media, not individual people, but topics, and lets you track what's being talked about and who's talking about those things. So you can then see, I can see in this particular Facebook group or in this particular Twitter thread that this person who I've got on my leads as somebody who might be interested in my stuff, they're talking about the stuff that I do. It's worth me hopping in now and having a bit of a conversation with them online, not to sell them, but just to show that you have some credibility and some sort of authority to be able to speak into that particular area of their life or business. And then there's lead generation systems like Opt-in Monster. So these are things where you allow people to opt into your mail lists, that sort of thing, so they can express an interest in what you're doing. If they express an interest in what they're doing enough to give you their email address, it's a very, very good idea that you might have someone who's got some real interest in what you're doing or some real interest in maybe even buying the products or services that you're selling. I like to use a search tool like hunter.io because what it does, it searches for email addresses in organizations. So if I know that Janet works at the Northern Territory Indigenous Business Network, I can look for the at ntibn.com.au domain name, and then I can look for matching email addresses that are known out on the internet for that. So I can go, there's Janet's right there. That's how I can get in touch with her. Or you can at least, if you know her name, understand that the format of the email addresses for that organization is first name dot last name, or it can be just first name, last name, or just first name, or first initial dot last name at the domain name. So it gives you an idea of who you're going to reach out to if you want a way to reach someone very directly without going through spammy services. This one's a really good way for you to kind of guess what the email address is of that person. And you can use email marketing campaigns like Constant Contact and Active Campaign, which are very good for getting that email address in and then nurturing the relationship along a series of automated and not so automated tools where you can get them to know what you do and who you are. So that's when someone, for instance, fills out a lead form on your landing page, for instance, and they then give you enough information to say, I'm interested in this thing, please get back to me. They get into what is called a sales funnel, and it's able to then nurture through a series of contacts through their email how to engage with you as a service or a product. It also is very good for just general emails. So people can jump in that general email and you can go, okay, I can track whether they've opened a particular website page. And if they have, then send them this new piece of information. If they haven't, resend them the old piece of information and send it with an additional message saying something like, hey, notice you hadn't read that email yet. Here's another version of just to remind you of the great information you can get from my downloadable ebook. Or something down that line, something of that effect. It's also all about connecting with real people, and that's probably some of the theme you're starting to see that's emerging now. It's not just about coming out to someone with a leads with a rate card and going, okay, here's my piece of paper that's got all my rates on it. There you go. Call me if you need it, if you need anything. That's the old way of thinking about sales, about putting a message in front of people so many times that you badger them into becoming a customer. You don't want to be that person. You don't, and that doesn't feel comfortable for most of us. It feels a little bit weird. It feels a little bit uncomfortable. It feels very inauthentic to most of us, thinking, you know what, I just don't feel comfortable doing this. I don't feel like I'm that guy who's just going to sit there and just keep selling and selling and selling. And hopefully someone will eventually say yes to me and I won't feel like such an idiot standing on a street corner yelling for people to buy my stuff. Connecting with real people is not a numbers game. Now, if you ever hear this from a sales room, just make lots of calls. It's just a numbers game. Call everybody. And, if you call 1,000 people and 100 people buy from you, that's a good day's work. It's not a numbers game. It's a quality connections game. Because what ends up happening if you're just going to spam call hundreds of people, and media sales organizations do this all the time. They'll just set out like quotas. They go, you need to call 5 people a day. And if you call 5 people a day, you've called 25 people in a week. And now that 25, you may sell 1. That's great. That's a good week's work. Good on you. It's a numbers game. Unfortunately, what you do, you annoy and disconnect and alienate, 24 out of those 25 people to get to that 1. So you're damaging and what they call burning leads by calling people who have no interest in what you're doing at all. having a warm introduction to someone. So they've expressed interest in what you do at some point, or they've had a chance to get to know you as a person, so that there's a chance that they would welcome your phone call or welcome you dropping into their business or welcome you sending them an email, rather than thinking, oh, this guy's so annoying, he's always just trying to sell me something. It's all about a quality connections game. Form the quality connections first, do that little bit of background work, and then when the connection's made, you may not sell it straight away, but at least the experience is a positive one for someone. And the act of lead generation is actually not prospecting. This is a really fine line that's drawn. It's like, well, isn't prospecting going out and panning for gold, right? Well, lead generation is kind of this thing where you're just basically putting it out there to people who are interested, and tying it down to a list of people to call, right? The problem is with prospecting is that prospecting is a little bit more targeted than that. Think about like the prospecting for gold. You're going to go panning for gold. You first of all have to go to an area that you know gold is. So you're not just going out to everywhere and just like going, okay, there's a creek over there, there's a little culvert or a little puddle of water. I'm going to dig my pan into it and hopefully some gold will come out. If you're not in an area where gold is commonly found in rivers and streams, you're not going to find gold in that puddle. You've got to be in the right place. So lead generation is far more broad stroke. It's far more, I'm putting it out there to everybody who's going to hear this and maybe relate to it. Hopefully they'll click on my link. That's not prospecting. Prospecting is a very targeted thing. It's very much knowing who the person is, knowing where the river is, whether it's in central Victoria, where there's known to be, little gold nuggets appearing in rivers and streams, and also knowing that you're going to a place where you're likely to find some kind of degree of people who are happy to speak to you. Just simply turning up to a town and knocking on doors without people knowing who you are or you knowing anything about that town is going to lead to you being that idiot sales rep that came in from out of town and annoyed people. It's not a helpful thing to do. Just here at the Walkabout Tavern, I was downstairs around lunchtime yesterday, hearing one of the drinks sales reps. So you know how like Coca-Cola and PepsiCo and all that, they send around sales reps and the alcohol manufacturers as well. They send sales reps all around the countryside to be able to develop relationships with the venues like the Walkabout Tavern or the Arnhem Club or any of the different places that sell the golf club, for instance. And they have conversations with them. They build a relationship with them. They introduce new products to them. And I could hear the conversation going backwards and forwards, such as, oh, we've got a really big thing for James Squire here. We get so many people from interstate who really like James Squire beer. And so he was going, yeah, I know you guys like cleared a couple of pallets of that last time I came through. Do you want the same again? They said, well, yeah, we do, but we want to try something new. They wanted to try something new because they had a level of trust with the guy that was sitting there. So it's quite interesting when you sit down and have lunch in restaurants and in any sort of hospitality venues, hang around long enough and you're going to see a rep who's going to walk in there and talk to the proprietor or the licensee or the manager about what it is they can do, what they can buy. You can see that sales process in action. And in almost every case, you'll see the look on the person's face as the sales rep walks in. If they're expected, they're going to a prospect. They're not just lead generating, not just rocking up. They've actually planned to come. It's greeted with a handshake, a smile, and a sit down. Let's talk. Let's grab a drink. Let's grab some lunch, rather than, no, come back later on. I'm too busy, which is what you'll get when you're just generating leads out of people. And another thing that's a myth is the client doesn't know what they want. And this is common, that clients always seem to know what it is they want, when they want it, how they want it delivered. It's kind of like they know when they get to McDonald's what's on the menu. They don't even need to look at the menu board. They know exactly what they're getting because they get the same thing every time. I don't know about you, but the last time I went for a drive-through at McDonald's, it was an annoying process of people in the cars in front of me who had, 5 minutes of lining up to make the decision about what they wanted. And they wait until they get to the actual microphone until they decide to look at the menu board and go, I want, maybe I'll get, have you got the, and you go, my goodness, man, you've had 5 minutes in this line where you could have considered exactly what you're booking. And now you're going to hold everybody up because you don't know what you want. That's clients. They don't necessarily always know what they want. And to be able to introduce alternatives that they've never thought about before is a powerful way of reaching into a solution building for them. If you've got a program, if you've got a workshop, if you've got a product, which can be used in multiple different ways and appeal to people in multiple different ways as well, you've got the opportunity to build a solution around what a client actually wants as you're talking to them, as you're interacting with them, and you're going, oh yeah, you want a workshop that's in Northern New South Wales? I'm doing a series of workshops in Northern Territory right now. That's all about tourism. I think I can adjust those to successfully build a curriculum around a really good high intense workshop for one day in Coffs Harbour, for instance. That's a conversation I was having this very morning, is how to convert a particular thing I'm already doing into something that can work for them. It's about having that conversation with the client to understand what it is they want, because they're not exactly sure what they want. I introduced the concept to them that I want to be in Coffs Harbour on the 19th of July. And that part of that was going, okay, well, that's when I want to be there. What could you use there? You know, is there something you could do? Can I meet you there? Can we grab a coffee, which has turned into now a locally sponsored Coffs Harbour Council business enterprise workshop day? That's great. It's turned into something that's more than just me dropping in for a coffee, because I reached out to that client and they didn't actually know what they wanted out of me. And they went, well, wait a minute, why don't we do something more than just grab a coffee? Let's make a thing of it. And we have, and now it's become a business opportunity. Now, once we get past that prospecting, we get past that field where we're going, okay, we know who this person is. We know a little bit about them. We're now going to book what is called discovery. And you quite often hear this word bandied about, that there is a discovery call or a discovery meeting. Often happens when you're a consultant. When someone's, before they're going to take you on to do their stuff, there's usually a scoping session. So we're going to scope out what it is the client actually needs to have completed. And it gives you a chance. Think of it like this. It's a job interview for business owners. So you're becoming interviewed by the client, and you're also interviewing the client to find out exactly what they need, giving you a chance to listen and form that kind of solution that they're looking for based upon the things that you're experienced in. Now, this discovery meeting is important to note. It's not a sales meeting. You're not there to sell anything just yet. What you're doing is discovering what they need, and they're discovering what you can offer. The goal during a discovery session, a discovery call, or a discovery meeting is to learn more about the client's business. Why you want to know more, and you think you might know how takeaway fish and chip shops work, or you may know how personal trainers work, or you may know how women in small business work, but you don't know anything about this business unless you're actually running that business yourself. There's going to be quirks and different things about every single small business. They're going to be very much different from one business to the next. So what you do, you learn about the business and find out through that conversation what they really need. Not necessarily what they said they needed up front in their introduction email where they reached out to you. You're going to find out what they really need, the why behind the why. And when you do that, they quite often come to you with an expectation of thinking, this is what I need. But then they come out of the session going, oh, actually, that's not what I needed at all. I need this over here instead. By finding out what they really need, you've got a better chance of having a really solid relationship with them that delivers what they're really, really needing, not just what they thought they wanted. And then you formulate a plan for how you're going to match up what they need with what you do. So you've got a certain set of capabilities, or you've got a team that's got capabilities, and then you have that discovery session so you can find out what they really need, what the objective is for why they got in contact with you in the first place. And you match those two things together to ensure that you're then giving them the right solution to the right problem they're trying to solve. It's part of this process. You're introducing yourself, you're building rapport. You will have done your research. You would have gone to LinkedIn and found out something, or gone to Facebook and heard that they went on a vacation to Bali last year, and say, oh, I see you go to Bali quite a lot. I go there myself. I go up to Chandidasa and into Tabanan district up sort of in the northwest. And where do you go? You go to Kuta. That's great. I haven't actually been in the Kuta. You have a conversation that gets you introduced, that gets you feeling comfortable with each other, because we are just essentially just tribal animals. When someone comes from outside of our tribe, we need to make ourselves feel safe with them. And as a hospitable person, you want them to feel safe around you as well. Sharing some stories, hearing some stories. It's not small talk. It's not waste of time. I know it feels like that sometimes because you've got so much to do in your day. But when someone trusts you, they're more likely to want to buy from you. And that trust comes from listening. You're going to have to listen. And by doing that, you're asking very directed questions. So for instance, if you're going, instead of saying, so what are you looking for us to do for you? You can go, so I see you've got a website. How would you improve your current website? Which is asking them to explain to you what they want you to do with their website. Or if the case is that you are, let's just say a lifestyle coach or a wealth and empowerment coach, something like that, your directed questions could be down the path of, what does it look like in the future when you're a happy person? What's that feel like? What are you doing? Where are you driving? Where are you living? What are your kids doing? And then you listen for those answers. You listen for what's coming back, watching for the body language that's coming back. Crossed arms and all that means that someone's still not very, very comfortable with you, or they're feeling self-conscious about themselves. Someone who's kind of like sort of playing with their face and their beard and twirling their hair and all that. It's often misread as flirting. Don't misread it as that, please. This is a business meeting. They're not flirting with you. What it is, they're sort of drifting off and they're kind of, wishing they were someone else. You're losing them. So that's when you say, oh, okay, well, I need to sort of, bring it back to them. They're obviously hearing too much about me. Now they want to get people talking about themselves. Benjamin Disraeli, who's a former British Prime Minister from the 1800s, he's kind of the father of the Conservative Party, was known as, what was it, like the Silent Ben, because what he would do, he'd just ask a question of someone. He'd go, so tell me, what was your day like? And then constituents would come up to him and just basically just blab about their day. And he came up with this quote. He said, look, if you get people to talk about themselves and you'll have their attention for hours. As long as you talk about them and get them to talk about themselves, you'll have them in that spot for hours. You'll have their direct attention and gaze. So watch that body language. Listen for the answers that people tell you about themselves, gives you a clue into their character and what they want. And refer to people you have in common. That's a very important thing. Whereas I quite often, if I'm reaching out cold to someone, I prefer to reach out to someone who I do know is connected to someone else I know. So we've got some point of common interest and go, oh, Rebecca as well. Isn't she amazing? I went to her first conference and she just blew me away with her ability to be able to pull that off on basically a zero shoestring budget. You realize she did that all on a credit card, and now she's running this conference in 3 different places around Australia every year. It's just phenomenal what she's been able to do. And so they'll also go, yeah, Rebecca is an amazing person. That's cool. How'd you meet her? So what it does, it paints a safe picture where it goes, well, Rebecca, who's one of my most respected friends, thinks this person is pretty good, then they're obviously pretty damn good. And notice how they talk about other people, how they talk about their competitors, how they talk about the people that they admire. It'll give you an insight into what it is that they're actually looking for. Now, they tell you about a competitor that they actually look up to and highly respect. Then you go, that's given me an idea. I need to go and now look at the website and the social media content of that competitor so I can go, this is who they look up to. This is good to know. That might cut down the amount of investigation I have to do to find out what this customer really wants, because obviously they really want what their competitor who they like is doing as well. So it cuts down that process where you listen enough to get that stuff. But of course, how in the hell do you get them to the meeting in the first place? Well, the first thing you got to do is cut down the time of discovery meetings. I've been with some organizations that like to take 2 hours to scope things out. It's too much. 30 minutes. That's all you need to be able to scope out what a customer wants to be able to build an estimate or a quote for them. Keep it short. 30 minutes is enough. Give it a time limit so they feel like they're going to get on with the rest of their day. Because as far as they're concerned, you are just part of their day. They may be the only person you're seeing all day, but you're just a single little part of their day, a very short snippet in their life. So indicate that you have a process that you use when it's really helpful in working out what they require. I quite often go in using the brand script or story brand technique from Donald Miller, which helps me to extract the information I need to be able to design a brand and messaging plan for a client. If I indicate I've got a process, they know, oh, okay, so I just go, look, it's going to take us half an hour to ask a bunch of questions. It's going to get a little weird. I'm going to ask you about the movies. Don't worry, trust me, it is a process and it comes out with a really cool result. And they think, okay, that doesn't sound too bad and I like the movies, so I'll talk about movies, no problem. And be open about that process. If you say that, let's just catch up for a coffee, is not setting a process in place, is not setting an agenda in place, and it's certainly not setting a time limit in place. If you say, hey, let's sit down, have a coffee. I'll show you a little bit of what I've done with some people who are very similar to you. And I'd like to ask you probably 5 questions about your business so I can kind of get an idea of what it is I can provide for you. Then you're putting it in context of it's a coffee. That's great. That's got a limit to it. 5 questions. That wouldn't take long. Explaining what I do, even put it in numbers. I'll show you the 3 things that I do that could really help you out. And I'll ask you 3 questions to find out what it is you really need. And they go 3 questions, 3 questions, 6 questions. That's going to be quick, short, sharp, great. It gives a time limit in their head. If you just have open-ended stuff like, hey, let's just catch up and have a beer and have a chat and, see what we can sort of work out, that feels vague. People have lives. They've got kids to pick up from school. They've got dinners to cook. They've got sports to get to. They've got things other than meeting you to deal with in their life. If you can show them that there is a time limit to what you're doing, that can help immensely to get someone into a meeting. And offer things like Zoom calls. Makes a big difference. Most of the discovery calls I'm now doing are all Zoom calls because I can't be everywhere all the time. I'm contracted to be in Nhulunbuy and Arnhem Land at the moment. Next week, I'm in Alice Springs, so I can't necessarily be right there in Sydney speaking to Laura from the financial planning company about her particular plans for the future. What I've got to do is make sure I can get through to her into a way that's going to help her slice up her day with all the things she has to do to make sure she gets the most out of that time with me that she can, and also get the most out of her that I can. But it has to have a time limit. It has to be kept short. 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour long lunches. That's stuff from like the 1990s. We don't do that anymore. And if we do, we need to really look at our calendars and start to save a little bit of time. When you go into the discovery meeting too, it's helpful to have the right people there, the kind of people who are going to make the decisions that need to be made and that have the answers to the questions you're going to ask. Things like going in, if you're selling websites, asking for the person who does their IT infrastructure. So who organized your domain name? Who organized your web hosting? Who built your current website? Oh, you did that in-house. Is the person going to be there? Good. Oh, good. Okay, they will be. So I've got probably a couple of questions I need to ask them just to make sure we're on the right track. Having the right people there means that you can provide the right quote, or you can provide the right context, and you can provide the right timelines. The timelines are very important. When you say it's going to take us 6 weeks to do this, then you get into the process realizing that you haven't spoken to the most critical person in the process and they're away for the next 6 weeks. You've got a bit of a problem. So making sure the right people are in your discovery call will save you oodles of time later on. And then make sure you have the right questions ready to go with people. When you're sitting around a desk with them, making sure that you can ask the questions like, how did you feel about that? What happened? What happened is actually one of the biggest questions, because quite often when someone's coming to you to solve a problem for them, something in the past has happened to spur them into action to find that solution that you provide. So asking them what happened to bring them towards you, not just saying, hey, how did you find me? That's kind of cool to know. But more important, you want to know what happened that spurred them to make a decision to get into contact with you. Something happened. And if they don't tell you what that is, you can't know what to avoid when it comes to putting together your particular plan to grow or to change or to work with them or their business. How did you feel gives you an insight into the kind of way they're going to feel when things don't quite go according to plan with you. So you know to be prepared for that. If you ask, so how did you feel when the web server went down? It's like, you know what? I was actually felt really pissed off. I actually felt really, really annoyed. I actually felt, actually kind of betrayed because I was told this was never going to happen. Then you go, okay, betrayed's a really strong word. So I'm thinking, that's how someone's going to work. If something goes wrong with what I'm providing, they're going to feel betrayed. So how do I work with that? How do I offset that? How do I make an allowance for knowing that this person can feel very personally attacked when things don't go right? Well, then you know that it's an extra reason to make things always go right. But it's also for you to let them know that this is a kind of person who probably needs to be letting things know up front. So if you suspect that something's about to happen and you tell them, hey, there's a very good chance in the next day that you may have an outage on your server for about 5 minutes. If they know about that and that then happens, they'll go, okay, I was prepared for that. I don't feel betrayed. This is why it's very important for you to get to know people and get a rapport, because you then know how emotionally they're going to respond when things go right or things go wrong. And you can get so much more out of them if you just know what their expectations of contact and how they handle conflict and all those things are. And they all come up in very simple conversations conversations, usually coffees or beers or 30-minute discovery call. And then looking at ways that people handle that. That's a very, very good question to ask as well. Because when things went wrong for you, how did you handle it internally? They said, well, what we had to do is we had to get our lawyers together because, we realized there's a breach of contract. So you go, okay, this is how they react when things go wrong. I know how to avoid that going wrong for me by ensuring that I'm always upfront with them, always transparent with them, because they're that kind of person. Or if there's someone who doesn't really want the details, you got to make sure that you have everything. Okay, someone in that organization has to be delegated those details. If the boss doesn't want the details, go, so who should I be working with when they've got to go through the details? Obviously, you're busy, you don't have time. Who do I deal with? And they go, oh, deal with Andrew. Andrew is actually, helps me out with all the technical details. Great. Andrew's going to be your best friend because you're going to be able to get to the big boss by going through Andrew. Bother Andrew with the details. He'll pass on the succinct version to the boss. And suddenly you're dealing with someone who's very, very happy to deal with you because they're not hearing all your problems. They're just hearing about the solutions. Andrew is getting all your problems. Having confidence in stepping into the room and into what you're doing is a massive deal. And I had a recent webinar called Imposter Syndrome. It's all about how people don't feel confident in what they're doing, what they're selling, quite often because they don't often believe in themselves. I think they keep needing to prove themselves over and over. And I had this conversation in an in-person workshop here in Nhulunbuy yesterday, where I was saying when I was listing all my accreditations and all my credentials up on a screen, and I was going, okay, and you'll notice I've got 87 of these. That's me doing overkill because I've got imposter syndrome. And they said, oh, what's that? And I said, well, this is where you kind of overcompensate for the fact that you don't feel like you're good enough. And so I go out there knowing that I've done all this stuff. And that's a reminder to me, as I put that up there, that I can be trusted because I've done all the work. I've done all the hard work of it. And it's like a reassurance to you that I know what I'm talking about as well, because I've done all the work to know what that is. I've got the experience and the background to do it. It allows me to walk into a room with confidence, knowing that I'm the right guy for the job right here and right now. Confidence is making sure that then not just you're confident in yourself, but the client can be confident in you. It's where you're making sure that everyone knows what to do next. So if they're in that discovery call with you, they know darn well that they're going to step on for that discovery call and a quote will be produced. Knowing what your process is part of that discovery call. Letting people know step by step what to expect from you as they're dealing with you is super, super important, because it's all about the who and the by when. The who and the by when is something I sort of got through from Treaty Business Consulting, doing work for them. Every project they do, they go, okay, who's doing it and by when has it got to be done? So then a project manager can look in and go, Dante was meant to do that by the 30th of January. Why hasn't it been done? Great. They know who to chase. It means that when a client's dealing with you, they're onboarding onto your process, or they're starting a project with you, or they're starting to buy something from you, then they know exactly what to expect. Even if you're selling a product on an e-commerce website, it's important for the customer to know what's next, especially on online carts where so many things can go wrong. You want to be able to at least be able to say, step 1, add it to cart. Step 2, select your color. Step 3, enter your address so we know where to post it to. Step 4, we need to know the address that's associated with your credit card, because that allows you to bill you correctly. Step 5, wait until the finish screen comes up and you know that it's on its way. That sort of thing is letting someone know what they've got to expect at the different levels of dealing with you. That kind of definition makes it really easy, because people are generally, look, please forgive me for saying this, but people are really dumb. Like they need the monkey see, monkey do thing. In Northern Australia, we have lots of swimming holes that are gorgeous and beautiful, but they're full of crocodiles. You can't go in them. But knowing that straight off the top of my mind knows that, well, I know, because I'm a smart guy, not to go swimming in water holes. But German and Swedish backpackers, they just don't realize that, or they forget it. Like, they don't think it's actually real, because there's no real physical threats in wildlife to their life where they come from. The whole idea that there is wildlife here that will kill them and eat them is completely foreign to them. So they forget, even though they've been told, they've been warned at various levels, do not swim in water holes during the wet season in the Northern Territory, they'll still go and do it, because they just don't think that anything could harm them. Unless you've got a sign in front of there saying, do not swim here because there's crocodiles, do not swim in this beach because there's jellyfish, Do not swim here because it's known to be where hammerhead sharks are. Then you've got to have that sort of instruction in place so that people have an expected outcome to every dealing they have with you. In sales, when someone knows what's going to happen next, okay, you bought this, here's what happens. Eloise is going to give you a call. She's going to then take this scope I've put together for you and turn it into the brief for what is going to happen with the website. After that, then they start building the website once you've signed off on that brief to make sure that definitely is what you need to get done. That process should take 6 to 8 weeks. And at the end of that, we will be in touch with you to say, we need you to look through it to make sure everything's right before you can sign that off and pay for it. That makes it a very clear process, and it makes a customer feel really comfortable dealing with you when they know exactly what the process and the terms of engagement are with you and what's going to happen next. People are shy. They don't want to chase you to find out what's next. You need to tell them what is coming up next. The pitch then is the part where most people like to skip straight to. So if you're selling, that pitch part is where you're actually going to present what it is you're going to sell and what those terms of engagement are going to be. So as part of your pitch, there needs to be what is called a value proposition. So this is what's in it for them and how they fit to that, what's in it for them, whether that's actually what they're after. What you're going to do is find a meeting place between what they need and then what you offer. Now, they kind of have a suspicion about what you offer. Otherwise, they never would have approached you in the first place. And you kind of have a suspicion about what they need, or you never would have approached them in the first place. You wouldn't be having this meeting unless you had a bit of an idea about what each other's motivations were and what each other is trying to get done. So you go into that meeting and you ask a few questions to get a few answers, such as you might be asked is how what you do is different from what others are doing and how it offers more value to the customer. This is part of laying out what your unique selling proposition is, your USP. It's like, what's so good about you when I line you up against everyone else who does what you do? So you need to be able to answer these questions to a client, even if they're not asking. It's like why they should pick you and how you're different from the others just like you, or how you offer a bit more value than what the others do. Is it a price point thing? Is it that they get more for their money? Is it that it's a faster process? Is it that it's more likely to be trusted because you've got like a whole ton of ideas and processes that nobody else has? What is it that your company has or your business has that your competitors don't? So if they're looking at someone like you and they want to get a full body massage because you're a massage therapist, right? What do you do that's different to everyone else? Oh, we use doTERRA essential oils so that you can feel relaxed and comfortable. And it smells amazing and you feel like you're off in another place. That's great. No one else does that? Great. The other thing might be we make you drink a liter of water before you sit down because we know dehydration is a major problem and it's going to help with the release of lactic acid in your muscles. It's going to help to dissolve that and help you pass through the nasties much quicker so you won't get those pains that last for days. That's great. That's explaining the terms of engagement with me, and it's something which I have never had explained to me before by a massage therapist. Great. I feel better already. And then you can say for how your customer differs from their competitors. So, for instance, if you're dealing with a business, then you'll ask them, how's your customer different from the customers of the guys down the road? Is there a difference in them? Are they not the same? Are they just the same? Are they the same people? Do they sometimes go between the two of you? Or is there a distinct difference between who you're selling to as opposed to who they're selling to? This is important to know because if you're dealing with a business-to-business environment and you're trying to sell a product or a service to another business, you need to have an idea of everything to do about that business you're selling about. And if you're selling something which is going to be sold in turn by that business to other people, understanding who their customers is so vital because only you can then tell whether what you're selling to them is actually suitable to be sold on to their customers. And then number 4 is where you ask what value that they offer their customer. So if you're selling again to a business that's selling to other consumers, what is their unique selling proposition? You've come up with yours. You know what your difference is. You know what you are or how you do things differently and why they should pick you over the others. Now you're going to work out, well, why do your customers pick you over everyone else as well? Then you have a better chance of understanding and designing a solution that fits for what they exactly need. If you're that beer rep, right, and they've got 3 different beer reps that come. They've got the Asahi rep, they've got the Lion Nathan rep, and they've got the Carlton United rep who come through. Each one of those guys are going to have different incentives, different products, and different services. And you might go, well, the difference between them and us is that we have got a promotion that runs every month on the dot, so you know that you can move more cartons of this particular promotional product because we have an incentive for that. The others don't do incentives. You go, okay, that's something different that I can then pass on to my customers. I can pass on a difference by taking out this promotion, by knowing that my customers can then go in the draw to win a $20,000 cruise for 2 around the world. Great, fantastic. You've got a point of difference. They've got a point of difference. And then the big question is how all these things that you're dealing with, whether they're selling to customers, whether they're selling to other businesses, whether you're selling to just an end user or whether you're selling to a business, how all these desires and all these questions are matched up by the thing that you're trying to sell. So it's no use you then going after the end of this, it's like, well, nothing that I do is going to match what you're trying to sell, but here, buy it anyway. You've wasted your time. Hopefully you can answer these questions by and large before you sit down with a client. That'd be really ideal to be able to get all that information in before you actually sit down with a client. But in realistic terms, that may not be the case. You may not get the opportunity to do that at all because you don't necessarily know the answers to all those questions. But if you can get that answer, it makes a lot of sense and it allows you to then answer even further questions for them, such as what the purpose and meaning is of what you do. This is delving into areas such as your mission and your vision, the thing that's bigger, a bigger picture about your product than simply, a refreshing drink that you can knock back after a hard day's work. It's asking what purpose that your particular solution has in the larger world. If your solution is environmentally friendly or organic or supports a particular kind of cause, then that's important to be putting across. That becomes part of your unique selling proposition. If you're selling a product which actively fights climate change, you need to put that across. It's like, well, we're doing a thing which is actually it's decreasing the amount of plastic that's going in the oceans because we're using no plastic or minimized plastic or bioplastic that is completely biodegradable. Then your purpose is larger than just selling this particular product. You've obviously got a mission that's to do with saving the world. Or it might be funding the education of girls in rural areas of the Philippines to be able to do more with their lives. Or it could be funding Indigenous educational programs in Central Australia. Or think about how your solution and your company is making the world a better place. A lot of the Teslas and the Googles and the Facebooks sell a lot of what they do and saying, we're making the world a better place by simply doing more stuff that's going to make the world easier to connect, or by making it so that there's more options. You don't have to have an internal combustion engine. You can buy an electric vehicle. You don't have to buy petrol ever again. What you're doing that goes beyond just simply providing a solution. And this is where you need to have a few stories in your backpack that you can pull out and go, well, we're doing this thing in the world because we truly believe that educating people in Central Australia who don't get access to normal education is a powerful thing for changing the world for better and adding to more diversity to the workforce and to what's available out there in the world. Or you pull something out this side of the backpack, which says, well, actually, we donate 10% of all our profits to a charity that feeds the homeless in Sydney and Melbourne. So your purpose is something bigger than just simply, here's my solution that fits your problem. Wacko, sign the dotted line, see you later. They can go, well, not only am I doing that, but I'm also now able to support other causes. An example of this one could be for the product Eventbrite, right? So you probably know Eventbrite. You actually booked this session using Eventbrite in one way or not. There's another product called Humanitix. It's an Australian not-for-profit startup that's basically almost a clone of Eventbrite. It does events. But what they do, their booking fee is contributed towards 2 things. And I mentioned them before. Educating girls in the Philippines who have not got access to educational facilities. And the other one it supports is scholarships for Indigenous Australian kids who are in remote areas to be able to go to higher educational facilities in larger centres. Their purpose and meaning goes beyond just selling tickets and making money on the booking fee. It's going towards changing the world for the better. That's why it's called Humanitix. So that's an example where you might go, that's something I can do. If I'm selling events, if I'm selling tickets to something, I might go, well, part of my story is to use humanitics. So when you buy a ticket with me, you're supporting these particular causes as well. That becomes an even bigger reason for someone to use you, particularly if they're quite altruistic and they want to be seen as doing something that's contributing to a better world. This could be a very powerful tool in your toolkit that actually helps you to get that sale across the line that you may be having some sort of struggles with. Part of what you're going to do in this process of introducing to something bigger and in terms of your purpose, and this is all part of your storytelling that comes as being a salesperson, is expanding their vision from what's happening right here, right now, talking about a sales call, to tomorrow's possibilities. So it expands their vision from just thinking of, well, here I'm going to buy a pallet of beer, to I'm going to buy a pallet of beer and I'm also helping to create a better world for certain people. That's powerful. That helps sell things. Expanding their ideas from now to the future. If they're anything about the now, getting through this call, getting through this discovery call, the session, or this place where you're starting to ask them a lot of questions, they're right there. They're right there in the now. But if you can expand their thoughts from just what's going on right now in this sales process to what they can imagine the future is like when they've bought your product or done your course or undertaken your service and that's improved their lives, when you can improve things out from just looking at the right now into what the possibilities are in the future, you've got someone who's starting to believe in the same dream that you have. If your dream is to change the world, they're now starting to believe in changing the world. If your dream is to get yourself in a position where you can educate your kids and not have to worry about university debts and HECS debts, then they start to believe that dream too, that future. They see that future as a wonderful thing. You're more than just a sales rep now. What you are is a person who's doing their bit for the planet, for the world, for humanity, for their family, for themselves, for the future. And they can feel themselves buying into that. It sounds very in the clouds and very airy-fairy, but this is a true thing. When you're doing things that people can believe in, they're so much more likely to want to connect with you. And it expands what they think about what you do. Suddenly, you're not just the person who's selling pallets of beer. You're not just the person who's a Reiki practitioner. You're not just the person who's selling stationery from door to door. You're not just the person who's opened up a coffee shop. You're now someone who's supporting small family coffee plantations in New Guinea. You're now a person who is supporting the organic food movement. You're now a person who's supporting the Indigenous education programs in Central Australia. You're not just the person who's selling them a product. You're now actually something so much more, something with so much more capability than what they thought you had in the first place. The negotiation and the closing of a deal is a whole other process that I'll have to have in another kind of seminar. I think this is where you go into a lot of people go into tricks. They go, there's the 3 steps to success, the 7 steps to success. There's so much material out there about negotiating and closing deals that I won't go into this one in this particular webinar because let's face it, it's a whole topic all on its own. So in that sense, there's books you can pick up, even starting with Stephen Covey's stuff or Covey's stuff about the 7 habits of highly effective people, I think it is called, something like that. Any of those, Bob Proctor's material from Proctor Gallagher is excellent when it comes to negotiation and closing. It comes from a place of believing in yourself and understanding you're more than what you thought you were. That kind of stuff I want to direct you to in another time. In the meantime, though, I think you would have picked up quite a lot of stuff in here that's going to help you to understand that you can sell too. You don't necessarily have to be a salesperson to be able to pull off that sale. If you'd like to talk more about sales or you'd like to book me through an ASBAS Digital Solutions consultation, talk about your sales process, I'd love to. You can book me through businessstation.com.au through their ASBAS Digital Solutions portal. I can now be found in that system to be booked directly under my name, which is great. If you'd like to connect with me on Facebook, that's my Facebook page where you'll have all these things coming up. I send up all these usually within about 2 or 3 hours of finishing the webinar. They're available on my Facebook, also on my LinkedIn, and through my own and Business Station's YouTube channels. So thank you so much for joining me today. My apologies, my voice is a little bit snuffly and I might have dropped in a few times being out in Arnhem Land, but it's certainly been fun and look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow. I'll have even more of these great webinars sharing with you for free. Thanks to Business Station and the Australian Small Business Advisory Services. Digital Solutions Program. Have a great day.